Dennis, I am so excited to have you back on the podcast talking about one of my favorite topics, which is motivation. But before we jump into that, I would love to hear more about what has been happening with you since we spoke last. I think it's been about a year.
Yeah, that's probably true. Well, I got to tell you, I'm looking at what you're wearing right now. And last week, so right now I'm in Puerto Rico, and last week I was in Whistler, Canada, right? And it's like seeing you with you get like the jacket and then the
Yeah,
headphones on, right? And I'm like it just reminds me of being cold.
right.
So,
Yes.
oh my gosh, what we keep growing, right? And we keep growing, but and when I say growing, it's like growing like we're the ones learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really, really awesome. We're looking at all kinds of new systems and ways to engage students and interact with students. And so, it's like, it's kind of funny. Like when you're like, well, what's going on? It's like, oh my gosh, everything, right?
Right.
Well, yeah. Oh, I don't know. Did I tell you? So my 20-year-old, I don't know if I told you this or not. So my 20-year-old he got cast in a professional dance company in Madrid, Spain, and he's a professional flamenco dancer now. So he's one of the youngest ones in the company. There's 20 people, 10 boys, 10 girls, well, 10 men, 10 women, right?
Right.
And I've got to see him perform a couple of times. I mean, he's fabulous, right? But just,
Yes.
yeah, so it's super cool. So, good stuff like that. My daughter started college a year early. It's like
Wow.
yeah, so she's already, yeah, going on about, well, but I want to go to Paris and go to college. Like, okay, well, you just turned
Oh,
18. Let's wait just a little bit, right? We'll give it another year or so, right? So,
yes. Oh, my word.
right. So, yeah,
Yeah.
cool stuff.
Well, that is wonderful. Just so exciting. And so, are you empty nesters for the first time now?
Almost, not quite. So pretty
Okay.
close.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, because the kids are still they're at. It's like one of those things like they're at home and you never see them, right? So it's kind
Ah,
of like that. Yeah, yeah.
right.
So yeah, pretty much. I remember when I was 18, it was like I couldn't wait to turn 18, and then I just kind of disappeared, even though I still lived at home. So that's my kids are doing the
Hmm.
same thing. Yeah.
Yes, it prepares you. It's not such a
Right.
huge shock to the system
Exactly.
then
That's
when they
right.
move out. All right. Well, wonderful. Well, I am looking forward to seeing you this year at the Great Homeschool Convention. Now, which location are you going to be
So I'm going to be,
exhibiting?
well, let's see. So I was going to be, well, I know for sure I'm going to be in St. Louis. So I'm going to see you
Okay.
there.
Okay. All right.
And
Perfect.
so I'll see you there. And then I was going to Texas and I had something else come up on a schedule. So I'm not going
Okay.
to Texas, but I'm going to California. So
Okay.
I'll be at those two.
Wonderful.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's
Well,
good.
I am looking forward to that.
Yeah. Me
Okay.
too.
So we got reacquainted. And so
Oh,
now let's talk
oh,
about,
can I tell you something
yeah.
cool that we're
Well,
doing
please,
at Great
please.
Homeschool Convention? Okay.
Okay.
So your listeners, they probably know Nicole the Math Lady. You know Nicole the
Mm-hmm.
Math Lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nicole
I do.
Thomas?
Yep.
So Nicole and I have become really good friends over the last few years, and we met, and I'm just like, I'm Mr. D, she's Nicole the Math Lady. It's like, okay, this is cool. We got to be pals, right? So we are in the process of designing it's called Joyful Futures, right?
Okay.
And so we're in the
Okay.
process of designing a webinar for kids, for parents that want to come, and it's really like a mastermind, to look and see what are you up to in your life and living your life like an entrepreneur and what's it look like. So not just necessarily about homeschooling, but what are you
Mm-hmm.
really up to in your life? And then looking kind of from where we are and what we've done and looking at our own lives and how we've taken things and moved it forward. And she and I are like two peas in a pod. So we're having so much fun designing this. And it looks like we're going to have it ready for April. We're going to be doing a joint presentation in both St. Louis and in California. And what's really great about that is that, when you look at math people, there's
Mm-hmm.
there's all the different math curriculums out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we get to work together and put something together is like for me, that's how industry and business should be.
Mm-hmm.
That we get to collaborate and work together and share our own skill sets and our unique talents, but do it together so that it's not about, oh, do her program, do my program, or do the other program that you're doing, right? It's like, no, we're looking for what's best for our learners, what's best for the students, what's best for the families. And we're both so excited about it. So that's coming.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Nicole's a lovely person, and I've really enjoyed talking with her at Great Homeschool Conventions. It's just
Yeah.
a fabulous place to meet people. So here's my plug for
Yeah, there
you
you
to
go.
get your ticket. Get
That's
your
right.
ticket and come see me and Dennis. We would love it. Okay, so now we're going to jump in and we're going to talk about what some of the biggest reasons that kids struggle with motivation for math are. What are some of those?
There's one big one. You
Mm-hmm.
ready? They don't
Yes.
like it. It's kind of like, when you think about, I'd put it right up there with doing chores.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like something you have to do, you don't want to do. Chores go away. You do the chores and and you actually can get some mastery with chores, right? Math,
Mm-hmm.
you got to keep practicing. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, it's one of that we do have lots of young people that math is their thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that's not the majority of kids. That's probably the minority where they kind of really like math and get into it, want to do it. So it's the biggest thing is just, it's like one of those things that they do it because they have to, not because they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest thing that gets in their way. It's like, how do you shift that? How do you move it from having them want to do it compared to that it's something they have to do?
Mm-hmm. That is huge. And I have written about that before. In fact, I wrote about the fact that when I was a kid, I took piano lessons and I would delay practicing until the very last minute. And even then, I wasn't practicing enough before I had my lesson. And I hated it because I had to do it
Right.
in part. Another part of it was that I had to play these pieces of music that I hated. So as soon as I asked my mom for permission to stop taking piano lessons, I would play for an hour a day.
Oh, that's
Every
really funny. Yep.
day, every
I
day.
believe it. Sure.
Right. So having to do something when it's an obligation, it really steals that motivation. So that's kind of like a little aside when you talked about not wanting to do something and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to do it. So I want to jump right into the topic that I know you're excited about and I'm excited about for you, and that is gamification, gamifying. So I know you are in the process of gamifying your program. So how does that process, turning it into a game, change the way that your students will engage with the lessons and learn to enjoy math?
Yeah, this is a great question. Well, and first of all, you know what, Melanie? No one knows that we're doing it. We haven't told anybody, right?
Oh,
So no, it's awesome. I mean, the news is coming out, right? So your
okay.
listeners are probably the first. They're the first like public audience that is going to hear that we're getting ready to do this. So we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna, for us, March 1st. That's our time when we'll
Okay.
get the word out. So that's when people are going to find out. Kind of like we're doing it, kind of like to be in line with convention season and being able to be out with
Mm-hmm.
our
Mm-hmm.
families and that kind of thing.
Right.
But we've been experimenting with gamification for the last couple of years. And where we started with it was we work with we get it, so it's kind of funny. We work with some public school kids that are in California and they're
Mm-hmm.
part of the public charter schools, but the public charter schools are personalized learning. So the kids it's like they're homeschooled because they do everything at home. They still work with moms, but they're part of a public charter school. And so what happened was, many of the curriculum providers like myself and, other folks, we provide our curriculum to them, but we never focus on test preparation because it's not been kind of a thing, right? And especially because state to state, sometimes they vary. And so I went back to some of the schools and I said, hey, if we put together a test prep program, would that be beneficial for your students? And they were like, oh my gosh, please do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we started on the project. I think the first version of it was about 5 years ago, and we've been going through. We've added. We're partnering with a company called Write at Home, and Write at Home does our ELA side of things, and we did the math portion. And so we had, we ran into the same issue. The issue was, there's math, right? But now think about test prep. No one wants to do that, right? That was the last thing anybody wanted to do. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
required. It wasn't a course they're going to get credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we go back to the schools and even with the public charter schools and with parents, it's like, here's one more thing we're going to ask you to do on top of your already full and busy day.
Mm-hmm.
When you have that kind of a situation, it's not like we're taking away something and say, do this in place of it. We're adding something on. So no one wanted to do it, right? And so we were looking at participation and how the kids were doing. What we knew was that the program was good. Like we knew that, right? And I've been
Hmm.
doing test prep for ever since I started teaching 30, are you ready? 36 years ago, right? So that's kind of, way back when, right?
Yeah.
So, we look at this and we see, okay, so what did it look like? And inside of our LMS system on our platform, we had the opportunity to add gamification. And I played with it a few years ago and I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if the kids will like it. Well, we tried it out and this was probably 10 years ago. And the kids loved it, but I didn't understand it enough to keep doing it. And so we kind
Hmm.
of like scrapped the idea, thought, I don't know. But then came back to it for our test prep program. And I'm going to tell you some of the statistics we had in 1 year. So we launched the gamification, the same exact course. We didn't change anything in the course. We just added gamification. So when I say gamification, what we mean by that is I went out and hired a professional cartoonist, and they designed all these like specialized badges, and they're all kind of like superhero characters, right?
Hmm.
And we built the different levels and point systems. And every time kids would get to a certain level, they'd get a badge. For every time they take a quiz, then they'd get to a certain level, they'd get points. We were doing contests with them. And what we found was the comments we got back from the students, these were the comments the kids were coming back with. And what they were saying was, they said, I love this. Literally, they used the word, I love this program. So, and I'm like, would you love the program? And so we're saying, well, why do you love it? They love the program. And they were saying, every time I take a quiz, I get a badge. Every time I get a chance, I can move up a level and I get these points. And it's just so cool, right?
Right.
So that was like our third, fourth, sixth, fifth, sixth graders. They were digging it, right? So we're like, okay, what about our grumpy teenagers? What about in California, it's the 11th graders that take this test, so they don't take it in grades 9 and 10. So we went back and pulled some of the 11th graders, and they same thing. So they came back and they said, oh my gosh, these are how many points I have. I love what's happening. This is so much fun. Like, oh my gosh, test prep is fun. But here's what they never said. Not one of them. Not one of them said, oh my gosh, this program's so great. I'm learning so much. They never
Mm.
mentioned what they were learning. What they mentioned was they mentioned that
They
they were
got their
moving.
badges.
You ever getting their badges and their levels, right? And I
Yeah.
thought, oh my gosh. All right. So I'm gonna try to see if I can like get this down to a level where it kind of like hopefully makes sense for people. In California, when they measure the student scores, what they do is they have this flat line called zero. And zero is like what they call the standard. So if your score is a zero, then you're pretty much right where you should be, right? And if you're above zero, you're doing better. If you're below zero, you're doing worse, right? That's kind of like the best
Hmm.
way to say it. So they call this a measurement distance from standard, standard being zero. So when we went from 2 years ago, so I'll give you the number from 2 years ago. The number for we measured this in two groups of kids. We measured this with students that what they call the low socioeconomic disadvantaged students, right? There was that's one group, and then the non socioeconomic disadvantaged students, right? And in that first group, in the low group, our numbers 2 years ago, they were at minus 52, right? Below zero.
Ooh.
Okay. Except the rest of the state was at minus 70, right? So we
Okay.
already knew that our program was working because we had improved, right? And so they
Hmm.
had moved up and they had done. Last year, we added gamification. This is like we hired this guy in California to run our statistics. And so for a statistician to use the word massive, that's not a word statisticians use. And he sent back, he goes, I don't even know what to tell you. These are massive double digit gains because I've never seen anything like this, right? So that number went from 2 years ago to last year test scores. So it went from minus 52 to minus 4.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's huge, right? And at the
Yes.
same time, remember that minus 70 that the state
Uh-huh.
was at? They went down to minus 80.
Oh.
So while the state went down, our students went up, but our students went up by like this huge gain, right? So we're like, okay, what
Hmm.
about what about the other group of kids, right? Same thing. It was the same thing where our kids they were pretty good. They were at a minus zero point 0.6, so just about minus one.
Hmm.
And that was 2 years ago. Last year, now they're over and they're up to, I had to write it down, they're at 8.52 positive, right? So this big jump. But
Amazing.
when you go back and you look at the state went down. And the
Mm.
state is still down around I think it's around minus 30 or something like that. Anyway,
Mm.
it wasn't great. So
Right.
we're looking at this. So while the state went down, our kids went up. It was the only number that was positive. So it was the only number above zero. And these were the kids doing our test prep program. So we're asking the kids, okay, so what's working? Everything came back to we love doing the program, we love the badges, we love the levels, right? We would meet them and do an assembly, and we would do contests, and we already do contests with our students, and it's one of the
Mm-hmm.
math students. They love the contest, right?
Right.
And so we started looking at, well, what would it look like if we gamified the math courses? And because we want kids to have that same experience, we want them to be where they're enjoying what they're doing. And it doesn't look like, I mean, in their world, it doesn't occur to them like they're learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Occurs to them like, oh, I'm going to get this badge, I'm going to get this points, I'm going to get this certificate. And it's kind of crazy what it looks like in how, and when I say crazy, I just mean that it's like it goes from this shift of that we're not talking about learning anymore, even though we know that's what's happening. How do we know that's happening? Because they're getting the points and moving up in the levels. And so they're so much more interested and invested in the course because of the gamification component. And it's funny. It's like I look at, I've been trying to learn Spanish for about 10 years, right?
Yeah.
I do this program called Duolingo. Are you
Mm-hmm.
familiar with that,
I
right?
use it too.
Okay, so I want you to know I'm on day, now I just did it today, 816-day streak, right?
Okay.
Which means, I'm plus 2 years into this of doing it every
Right.
single day.
Right.
Why do I do it every single day? Because I want to? No. Why am I doing it every single day? Because I'm not going to let that streak end.
Right.
It's about the gamification of it, right? And
Correct.
then you get the leaderboards, you got all this stuff that's going on. And so I'm going to practice every single day. And
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing, right? And my Spanish
Yes.
is definitely improving. So I'll say that it's getting
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
It's kind of, a little bit, what do they say, más o menos, right? Poco y
Yeah.
poco. So little by little, here we go.
Mm.
But it's the gamification component that makes it work. So we've seen the results with these test prep scores. And so what we want to do is give our math students the same opportunity so that for them, it becomes fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we want for them. It's like they're enjoying it. They're doing it. They're doing it now. We know they're learning. I'm not worried about that part, right? We know if the program, we know the
Mm-hmm.
program. So we've already
Mm-hmm.
seen that. But what we wanted to do was get into how do they feel? Like
Mm-hmm.
that motivation piece of it. Like we're actually looking at the affect as opposed to the effect, right? So we're looking at
Mm-hmm.
like how are they feeling about it? Are they smiling when it's over? They see this badge pop up. Oh my gosh. And they don't know what badge they're getting, right? And so we have all these different characters. So it's just really fun for them. But that's the gamification that we're getting ready to add. And then we're going to see what else we can do with that. So it's all coming.
Ah, that's very, very exciting. It's going to be really a lot of fun to see what your results look like in the future, for sure.
I agree.
Yes. Okay, so what would you say to a parent who says, okay, I mean, the gamification stuff, that sounds really interesting, but is it possible that I just have a child who isn't a math person and they're just not going to learn it?
So is it possible? Well, there's two things. One, is it possible they're going to say that? 100%. Is it possible that's true? Less than 100%. Now, where is that? You think about, there are, if you've ever, can you sing?
I can,
You can,
somewhat,
right?
somewhat.
And I was always told, you're never going to be able to sing. That's what people would just tell me. They
Hmm.
hear me sing and they're like, can't do it. And I heard somebody say, this was kind of funny one day. I heard somebody say, anybody can learn to sing. And I thought, well, if anybody can learn to sing, I'm in that category. I want to learn to sing. So I always kind of apply that same idea to my kid's not a math person but are they a singer? Are they a dancer? And it all comes down to, are you interested? Are you curious? Do you want
Yes.
to? It's like looking at math and most of the times what happens for kids, and I'm gonna take a guess that most kids when they say they're not math people, they've heard that somewhere before.
Hmm.
You know? So and it's probably from the taller, older person in their family, right?
Yep, yep.
But they probably heard that from mom or dad saying, I'm not a math person. I was never good at this. Or, they're kind of having their own conversation go on. Or kids, when they're young, same thing. Why do grown-ups say this? Because they had some experience when they were young. It didn't go well. And so they just made up this conversation to themselves that, well, I'm not good at this, right?
Hmm.
And, you think about, can you imagine? Here's a good example, okay? What if when your kids were growing up, right? My kids, anybody with kids, they're growing up And what if they were learning how to walk and, they're going to fall down, right? So what if we said as parents, well, they're just not walkers.
I know.
I mean, it's just kind of funny. It's like, and babies they don't have that conversation, because they're not thinking about. They just get up and start walking again, right?
Mhm.
But if we said to them, well, maybe you're just not a walker. Can you imagine what would that do to our kids, right? And so I think it's all inside of a conversation about, well, maybe they're just not math people, but maybe they are.
Mm,
So it's like looking at, well, how do we jump that hurdle? How do we get them past that? So it's again,
yes. So,
gamification comes back in. Let's make it fun. Let's get them going. Let's get them
yes.
some experience, right?
Yeah. So before we talk about how to make it fun, how can we have a more positive math culture in our home, especially if we personally don't love math?
Right. Well, it's not a stretch as most people might think it is.
Hmm.
So there's a couple things. So one of the things that we love to do this with our kids that want to do the honors portion of our course. So in all the chapters in the math course, they're starting this in middle school, right? So in middle
Hmm.
school up through high school, what we're asking them to do is we present a topic. And if you've ever seen honors courses, and so the textbook company decides what you're going to work on, and they give you this
Hmm.
practice problem. Well, that's not always interesting to kids. So what we do is we say, all right, here's this math concept we just learned. Go out, go on the internet, do whatever, talk to mom and dad, interview grandma, grandpa, whoever, right? But go out and look and see, where does this show up in life?
Hmm.
And what we find is that the kids are going to apply it to what they're interested in, not what I think they're interested in. Because how would I know?
Hmm.
I don't know what they're interested in, right?
Hmm.
Unless they tell me. So one part is actually looking at, where would you use this in your life?
Hmm.
By the way, when I say in your life, what a lot of people say? The kids say this, and even I hear moms and dads saying, when are we going to use this in the real world?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? Okay, so this is a hot tip for everyone. Are you ready? There's no such thing as that, right? Because if you say, when am I going to use this in the real world, implies that you're not
We're in a
living in
fake
the real
world.
world, you're living in an imaginary world, and we know that's not true, right? So even saying that this is not an
Hmm.
accurate statement, right? But we're
Hmm.
so caught up in that, and we think that's what we're supposed to say. We have all these examples of it, and it's just a funny way of saying it. But really, the truth is that there are things that happen, and I just say in the world outside of a math class, right? So
Hmm.
where does it look like, and where might it show up? Where do you start with that? How do you get that into your own home? And it's like, if you thought of all the things that you could do in a day where you might have to deal with some math, everything from the grocery store to the gas station to shopping online, going to Amazon, looking at prices. And they put the thing on there and they go, oh, today's a 30% discount, right? So there's
Hmm.
all these things, and it's like, well, how'd they come up with that, and where'd they get that from? But if we look at the things that we interact with every single day, we're going to actually start discovering that we use math quite a bit. Then it's like, point to it, be like, oh my gosh, that's something that we do in math, and then look and see, well, where instead of the reverse, right? Instead of us saying, where am I going to use that in my life outside of a math class? When we can actually look and see the things that we do,
Hmm.
where could we say, where might that show up in our math class, right? Like, what connection,
Hmm.
right? So it's kind of like, it's reversing the question. Do people want to do that? Probably not, right? But I think that it's a set about how we think and about our
Hmm.
mindset. And we've got in our heads that this is hard. Okay.
Hmm.
It's only hard if we say it's hard. And are things hard sometimes? Yeah, of course.
Hmm.
Right. But how do we get better at it? Well, we practice, and it's
Hmm.
like, I tell kids all the time, it's like, why don't you do your homework twice? And they think there's some alien talking to them. It's like, what do you mean do the homework twice? And I think about, you think about, professional basketball players, right? And how many times a
Mm.
day do they practice a free throw, a 3-point shot?
Mm.
They do the same thing over and over and over and over again so that they can do what? So even in pro basketball, right? They don't make it in every time. you know, Baseball
Mhm.
players, what do you have to, if you hit the ball 1 out of 3 times, every time you play the game, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
You have over 300, over 300 batting average. It's awesome, right?
Mhm.
But it's interesting because they practice and practice and practice and practice, and they still only hit the ball 1 out of 3 times, or the free throw shooters, or whatever their percentage shots are, and so it's curious when you start looking at, well, where do these things show up? when we look beyond a math class, right? And where can I start to apply this? So I love when kids talk about sports. They're like, but I'm into sports. It's like, what do you think those guys do when they predict the hang time of a football from a punter? What's it doing? What kind of shape is it taking? It's just kind of a funny thing. It's like, wow, that's just math. And there it is. That's what they're doing. And that's actually from algebra. Go figure. So it's taking some time and actually looking, well, when do I use math? I think that it's one of those things that we don't, it's kind of like driving your car. You get in the car, you drive the car, you know how to drive the car, you don't even think twice about it. And then there's things that we do that involve math, and you just do it, but you don't necessarily notice that you're applying math principles. You just do it because it's normal for you, and that's what you do. So it's like, it's just it's paying attention is probably the best thing, and taking note and saying, wow, this is math. Oh my gosh, look at that. Well, now let's look and see, where can you find that in your course?
Right,
Play on
right.
words, right? Yeah.
Yes. The other thing that I have done, which is pretty fun, is if you take a child's interest or intended profession and you just Google, how does a person in this hobby or profession use math?
Yep.
And Google will tell you exactly how, so you can show it to your child and say,
That's
see,
right. Yeah, yeah.
they
Now,
really do use it.
for kid, you know what the kids are going to do though? They're not even going to Google it. They're going to ask Chat GPT.
Well, right. Yes, but I will say,
Yeah.
I will say that Google and ChatGPT are becoming almost synonymous lately. Like
Yes.
when you do a search, you'll get typically an AI response at the top
That's right.
of the results. So,
You know, that's funny. You should not to get off topic.
yeah,
but we're
yeah,
getting off
right.
topic here, right? But you know,
Right.
I was listening to this podcast on marketing and media and all these things, and they were talking about how, you know, Google, it's always about being the SEO, the search engine optimization, right? And what they're pointing to is how that's really starting to go away. And why it's going away is what you just said. When you Google something, it's getting what? It's pulling the information, and you're getting information first before you see any of the websites that do what it is, right? You're getting all that AI generated information. So you're right.
Right.
They are becoming one and the same. It's really interesting, fascinating
It
to watch
is.
and see. Yeah.
It is. Okay, so Dennis, I am curious to know. I know that you have gotten a number of testimonials from students over the years. Have you ever gotten a testimonial from a student who said that they just dreaded math before they went through one of your courses and then they ended up really enjoying it?
Yep, all the time, all the time. We're doing something right now. This is my favorite month of the year is February. Right. And the reason why is that we do a contest for our students, and we tell them it's so the whole month we call Student Appreciation Month. Right. You know, if you look on the calendar, we don't have any of that. There's Grandparents' Day, there's Father's Day, Mother's Day, there's probably a pet day somewhere, but we never take the day to have a student day. Right. And so we take the whole month of February and we're like, this is Student Appreciation Month. All of our staff comes together. Everybody makes a little video for the students, and we play that for them. And we have contests every week. But one of the things that we do, and we've been doing for a while, is we have a video contest for the kids. We actually give away quite a bit of money for this, right? And the kids are engaged in it right now. And so we're getting videos that come in. We usually get anywhere upwards of like 350 videos that come in.
Oh,
It's crazy, right? And of course, and then we've got a panel of judges, and everybody goes through all the videos, and so it's kind of fun, you know, fun time, busy but fun time of year to see the videos. And for me, it is that, you know, if you ever think about the times and you look at the work that we do, right, and you think about all the things. You know, most of the time when you get an email, you're more like managing the complaint department or the question department or that kind of thing, right? So it's not, people don't just stop what they're doing and email you to say, "Oh my God, I love your program. I'm so excited." Now they do, right? But it's right. And so this video contest is the time when the students tell us what they love about the program. And I can't tell you how many times that the students say exactly that. They say, "I never understood this, and now I do. Math has become my favorite subject."
Aw.
We have on our website, we've got a whole list of student testimonials. And so, you know, the testimonials are not about, oh my gosh, just like I raised my SAT scores. Yeah, we can do that, right? But the testimonials we get are from the kids coming back and saying, "I used to hate math. I didn't understand it. Now I finally get it." In fact, we changed our tagline. right? So we used to, I don't even remember what it was, right? But what is it now? Like you'll see at the convention now. And we
Hmm.
just say, when kids say they finally get it.
Mm.
That's what they say. It's like, oh my gosh, this makes sense now. I finally get it.
Hmm.
So that's what we hear from our students. So it's been awesome, right? So it's good.
Wonderful. I'm
Yeah.
so glad. I'm so glad. Well, I know that my kids loved, loved, loved your courses, but I know that not every single homeschooling parent listening is going to buy one of your courses. We'll wait for them to come around
Right.
to making that decision. But while they are, do you have any simple practical strategies that parents can start using today to make math more fun and
Mhm.
motivating for their kids?
I do. So we actually do this in our test prep program, right? And it's kind of a thing. By the way, for people that use our programs and don't use our program, use other programs, that's a great thing about being in who we are as homeschool families, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get to be the one that gets to say, moms, dads, it's your choice, right? And so, do your homework, like look and see and find the ones that work for you. And of course you're going to get people's opinions and they're going to share with you, but really check it out yourself and let your kids check it out. Right? This just one thing. It's just, I love that we're in this industry because choice is possible for people. And I just think that is just huge. So, but we'll give you a little tip from our test prep program that we have the students do. And believe it or not, it turns into something quite cool. And that is that what we tell the students to do, one of their assignments in test prep is that when they finish an assignment, they'll take a quiz and then we tell them, okay, there was a practice problem that you just looked at. Now your next assignment is go teach someone else that problem, right? And so if kids are struggling, if parents are struggling, right? And this is a hot tip for parents as well. You don't have to understand it. You really want to go back and learn, the equation of a circle and how to graph the equation of a circle and how to find the radius and use the distance formula. I mean, we can go through all these different formulas, right, of what you do. But instead, task your young person with your teacher
Mm.
and just say to them, it's like, okay, here's what I want you to do. You're going to go work on your math homework, right? And when you're done, I want you to come back and teach me 2 or 3 of the problems that were your favorite problems of the day. Now, if you think about what's happening, one,
Mm.
young people, they don't like to disappoint their parents, you know?
Hmm.
And so they're going to want to do it. They're going to look for the couple that they really, really understand. And then the next part of that is when they're explaining it, there is this mastery effect that happens because there's things that fire in the brain when you orally have to say and explain what you're doing. You get it at a different level. Here's a good example of that. As homeschool parents, have you ever taught your kids something and you stopped in the moment, you said to yourself and you said, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense now. I don't understand why I didn't get it when I was in school.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's because you're like more mature and older. I think it's because you're the one teaching and you're the one
Hmm.
explaining. And so you have to put those connections together. And I don't think we do that often enough. We don't give it back to
Hmm.
the students and say, we're the one learning this. Why don't you teach me? And it takes some of the pressure off of parents trying to learn all of this, right?
Hmm.
At the same time, it puts the students in a place where they have a vested interest because they're going to teach. I'm going to teach mom and dad. Kids love to do that, right?
Hmm.
They're like, oh, let me show you what I learned today, right? And then here's that conversation at the dinner table, right? What'd you do today? What'd you learn today? Nothing. That's the teenager, right? Right. So
Uh-huh.
yeah. And but what if it's like, okay, well, share with me, show me how to do one of the problems you did today, and that they're actually sharing and they're talking and they're communicating. It is, for me, it's probably the number one way to get kids engaged. And for those ones that really don't like it, once they start to explain it, when they explain it and they understand it themselves, that starts to shift their mentality about I'm not a math person, and they start to get
Mm.
I'm actually good,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
So that's the hot tip.
That's very, very good. I love it. Okay, so what can parents do online to learn more about your programs and to connect with you?
Oh, super simple. MrDmath.com, MRDMATH.com. Once you get on the site, you're going to see all the programs we have. All those testimonials are on there. We have testimonials from students, from teachers. We've got videos from our students. You should check it out and see what our kids say about it, right? I'm
Mm.
way more interested in what our students have to say than what I have to say because they're the ones doing the course, right? So we want to hear from them. So you can check all that out, and you can also get samples of what we do, how we do it. You can demo our courses. So it's all on the website. Contact us if you have questions. MrDMath.com. Start there, and yeah, we'd love to see you online.
And what about like your handle on Instagram?
What is that? Yeah, yeah. So it's Mr. D Math Live. So it's
Okay,
Mr. D Math
perfect.
Live. It's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of that. And I took on this year. Making a dedicated effort this year to be much more active on social media. So
Mm-hmm.
people are seeing it. But I actually was skiing last week for the. This is actually funny. I'm gonna say I was skiing last week. Not really. I mean, I took lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with the instructor the whole time. But I'm kind of holding on for dear life, and I'm like, don't let me fall down, don't let me fall down. But I got to go by myself a little bit. So it's I even tell people, do you know who the Macho Man Randy Savage is?
Yes.
That person, the wrestler,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I bought a Macho Man costume, dressed up like the Macho Man, and did a whole Instagram thing. Anyway, we're just gonna have fun this year, and we just want people to be engaged and just love what's happening out there. Love being homeschooling families, and whatever program you're doing, that you love it. We would hope that you do ours and love our program, but we just want you engaged and loving what you're up to and what you're doing. So, yeah, so you can find us, Mr. DMath, live on all of those social media platforms, and expect a lot more this year. We're actually going to start doing more YouTube videos,
Mm-hmm.
and the YouTube videos are going to be more content based, where
Okay.
we want to just start giving away what we do, in
Mm,
terms of like, like a whole course, right? Because you're not going to sit down and do a whole year-long course, but we want to start giving away the topics and how we do it and our
mm-hmm.
methodology and different things like that, because it's time to give back, and share with people. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm going to put those links in the show notes, including great homeschool conventions, so
Yes.
that you can
Okay.
come out and see us this year. Dennis, this was a joy. I am so looking forward to seeing you in person this year.
You as well, Melanie. So big hugs. Here we go.